Before we review the forum rules to officially kick off the event, I'd like to introduce our team of moderators that we have here today. Kara Pride, Mira Baum-Subramian, and Drew Phillips. And finally, the candidates that graciously agreed to join us. Ben Jealous, Alec Ross, Rich Madaleno, Jim Shea, Kevin Kamnitz, Krish Vidyanatha, and Ralph Jaffe. I would now like to introduce my co-host, Ian First, who will read you the rules of the forum.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, allow me to present the guidelines of this forum. First, as much as we all love our engaging debates here at Goucher, I ask all attendees to refrain from any applause or noise during the forum. Audience members may not visibly or audibly display support or opposition to any of the candidates. Any violations will result in the removal of members from the forum venue. Our moderators will be responsible for monitoring the response times to the questions, moving through the order of the questions, repeating the questions if needed, and maintaining the rules of the forum. Candidates who do not follow the rules of the forum will be asked to leave the stage. Moderators are forbidden from providing any additional commentary or supporting any individual candidate. Candidates, each of you will be asked, in the order determined by your randomly assigned seating, to present a 2-minute opening statement providing biographical information and answering the following question. What is the most important issue facing young voters in Maryland today? Following opening statements, designated questions will be asked by a selected student to an assigned candidate. As mentioned previously, these questions were generated by college students in Maryland and selected by a bipartisan team of Goucher students. The assignment of questions to candidates has been determined by a random card draw. In addition to the randomly assigned questions, each candidate will be given 2 opportunities to also answer any question of their choosing. For example, candidate A is given a question about the environment. Candidate B and candidate D can also opt to answer that question. Every question response is limited to 1.5 minutes, and candidates should address the audience and not each other. The moderators will use cards to designate how much time remains. The first raise of a card designates 30 seconds remaining. The second, 10 seconds, and a bell ring when time is up. When all candidates, including the candidate to which the question was originally assigned, and those who opt to also answer the question, are finished with a question, the moderator will invite the next student to ask the question. When the questions are completed, the moderators will then ask the candidates to give a 1-minute maximum closing statement. Again, on behalf of Goucher College and the Sarah T. Hughes Center, welcome to today's forum, and I look forward to hearing each of you discuss the questions put forward today. I will now hand the forum over to our moderators.
Starting with Ben Jealous, we now invite you to give your opening statement, including your answer to what is the most important issue facing young Marylanders today.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Ben Jealous, the former national president of the NAACP, partner at K4 Capital, run the Baltimore office of a Silicon Valley firm. We invest in double bottom line companies that make the world better for working people. And I chaired Bernie Sanders' campaign here in our beautiful state. I say that the most important issue facing young voters in Maryland today, in America today, is turning out young voters. When young voters turn out, our country changes for the better faster than many think is possible. You're facing a massive student debt crisis, mass incarceration. And you are, they say, you will be the first generation of Americans to be worse off than your parents and your grandparents. And there's really only one way to turn that around, and we saw it in the Bernie campaign, which is for young people to organize young people, to speak up for young people, and to turn out and to vote your interests. There are a large and robust generation that is forward-thinking in so many ways. We need you in politics, and I would say the best way to increase that turnout is for more of you to run. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Alec Ross, and I'm running for governor to bring some new ideas into our politics and into our governance. My path here was a little bit unusual. I helped put myself through college working as a midnight janitor and working on a beer truck. And moved to Baltimore 24 years ago for Teach for America, and was a middle school teacher at Booker T. Washington Middle School, where I fell in love with and married the math teacher across the hall, who's still an educator in our city schools. But after my time in the classroom, I went on, I became a nonprofit executive for 12 years. I ran technology policy for Barack Obama's presidential campaign, and then I had a good long run working as a presidential appointee in the Obama administration, focused on bringing innovative solutions to some of our most pressing national security challenges. I think the biggest problem our young people face today is the lack of economic opportunity that is waiting for you as soon as you walk off campus. When you walk off campus with a crushing amount of debt and a lack of access to good jobs, it can take years to claw your way out of that. The future can be a scary place. In a world of artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, globalization, and automation, we don't know where the jobs are going to be in the next 10 years. I wrote a book about this, a New York Times bestseller called The Industries of the Future that just got published in its 18th language. And what I want to do is I want to take the lessons from having been a teacher, a nonprofit executive, a member of the Obama administration, and somebody who's studying the industries of the future to try to light a little path for those of you who are going to be entering the workforce in the years ahead. Thank you.
Is this one on? Good morning, or good afternoon. My name is Rich Madalino. I'm a state senator from Montgomery County. I've been a member of the legislature for the last 16 years. Before that, I was a state employee, a county employee. I grew up in Maryland. My husband, Mark, and I are raising 2 kids in Kensington. We have a high school freshman and a 5th grader. So I am running because it is time for us to bring a sense of hope and direction back to the state of Maryland. Right now, as young people, what do I think is the greatest challenge you're facing? Well, first, if we manage to survive the Trump administration and still have a civil society in place over the next 2 years, we will have to turn our focus to the growing economic divide in our country. Income inequality is driving our country apart, is driving our state apart. We have to find a way to make sure young people from all regions of the state have an opportunity to see that there is a job for them, there's a career for them, there's a family for them, that there's an opportunity to pursue an education, whether it's just through high school, if through a community college, or through a wonderful 4-year institution like Goucher. I have been leading the charge in the legislature over the last 10 years in issues around college affordability, in working with the independent colleges to make sure we continue the degree of funding that is necessary to help make sure you have scholarships and the programs you need, but to the community colleges, the public institutions, making sure that higher ed is available for everyone. We need to give people a sense of hope moving forward. I'm actually offering something different. I'm an insider. I'm someone who has actually been working on these issues at the state level. It's often, Americans like to turn, Marylanders like to turn to the outsider to come in and magically fix things. I'm offering something different.
Move on to the next candidate.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Goucher. I'm Jim Shea. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much. I'm a political outsider. I've never run for office before. I'm not a career politician. I'm not a product of the Maryland Democratic machine. But I have been getting things done over the last 40 years. I have been chair of the University System of Maryland, 12 public universities and colleges. And I have seen firsthand through that enormous organization how important it is what you're doing right now. That is attending college and getting ready to compete in a global competitive world. I also have led for 22 years a law firm, a large law firm, 700 lawyers. It's the largest in Maryland and one of the largest in the world. I have seen there the growth of young professionals as I've hired them out of law school and watched them grow as lawyers. You have a magnificent future in front of you. Stick with it, work hard. The most important issue for Marylanders, from this seasoned voice with a fresh perspective, is education. It brings us together. It enables us to flourish. It enables you to have great jobs and great lives. We need to improve our K-12 education system and our vocational educational system in this state. We were number one. We slipped to the middle of the pack, and if I'm governor, we'll be number one again. Thank you all.
I'm Kevin Kamenetz. I'm the Baltimore County Executive. I'm a lifelong Marylander, and I'm a lifelong Democrat. In the past 8 years as County Executive, I've improved our schools with rising graduation rates. I've created jobs, cutting our unemployment rate in half, and I've protected the environment while fighting climate change. And I've done all of this without raising the tax rates. You see, this is my track record of real results, not just promises that I'll bring as governor. I'm going to be the advocate for education that all of Maryland schools need, because I believe that the quality of someone's education should not be dependent upon his or her zip code. I'm going to do that by fully funding education and ending the disparity between the haves and the have-nots. I'm going to bring universal pre-K to every 4-year-old so that we can prevent the achievement gap before it begins. And I'll make college more affordable and job skill training more accessible to every Maryland resident. But I'll also be the governor who stands up to Donald Trump, because I've been standing up to hate my entire career. I did it when I said that no county employee, including our police, will inquire as to someone's immigration status. I did it last year when I said that our police aren't going to enter any of our colleges here in Baltimore County to seek out DACA students. I did it 3 years ago when I renamed Robert E. Lee Park as Lake Roland, eliminating a symbol of hate. And I did it 6 years ago when I protected the rights of transgender individuals. These were not easy things to do, but they were always the right thing to do. And as governor, that's what I will deliver. Thank you so much.
Thanks for not putting that on the microphone. I would have felt like it was stand-up comedy or a spelling bee, neither of which would have been good. My name is Krish Vignaraja, and for me the answer is quite simply opportunity, whether that is talking about education, economic jobs, or equality. And for me it's a deeply personal issue because it is my life story. I was 9 months old when my parents fled a civil war in Sri Lanka and came to America. They had no jobs, $200 in their pockets, and 2 very, very young kids in their arms. They became Baltimore City public school teachers. I myself am a product of public schools. And what they did was they built a life here in Maryland that made my life possible, going from Woodlawn High to the White House. And listening to the State of the Union this week, I realized that that opportunity, that American dream, is no longer guaranteed. I had the good fortune of being Michelle Obama's policy director at the White House, and before that, senior advisor to Hillary Clinton and John Kerry. And before that, I served as a lawyer as well as in business at McKinsey. And in no country in this world, maybe in no other state in this country, is that opportunity, that type of trajectory possible, except for here at home. And so I wonder sometimes, if my family had fled today instead of in 1980, would they have been allowed into Trump's America? And listening to Hogan's State of the State this week, you wonder, would our family have had the same opportunity here in Maryland? And what I'm fighting for, the reason why I'm running is because I want to make sure that every child, every family, every parent has the chance to live that American dream Because unfortunately, while we have been able to embrace and cherish it for a very long time, now more than ever, we need to protect it. So I hope you'll join me.
First, I want to thank Dr. Cromer and her staff and all of you for being here today. My name is Ralph Chaffee. The purpose and most important issue that we have to face can be summarized in one word: trust. Trust. I started in 2002 a movement to begin the process of getting rid of all the moral bankruptcy in our government. It is flawed big time. And one of the things we have to get rid of is the money in politics. I made a commitment starting in 2002, and I've kept my word. I don't take campaign contributions because they are bribes, disguised bribes. They may be legal, but they are unethical. Secondly, I made a commitment to begin the process of putting a stop to career politicians. I'm a teacher, and this is my 6th campaign with this movement. And I want to tell you this, that the only way we're going to stop this whole problem is to make a commitment to serve one term only. Because if you serve one term only, you say the following to your constituents: I'm not in this for the power, the money, the fame. I just want to be a good public servant. And until we get politicians who are going to make that commitment, we're going to have the same old gridlock, the problems we have, the education problem we have, the drug problem we have, the economic problem we have, people at work, and it's not going to change. And I've been consistent. My budget by design has been always no less than $450. And it's been that way for the last 15 years. To be continued, and thank you.
Now let's have our first question.
Hello, my name is Neve Levinson, and I'm a student here at Goucher. My question for you is, it's often argued that the economic benefits that large companies such as Amazon bring to a state will offset the cost of taxpayer-funded corporate incentive packages. However, my question is, what would you do to make sure that everyone benefits from attracting large companies, not just predominantly white and affluent community people?
That's for you, Ben.
I was wondering. Oh, I appreciate that question. You know, a lot of folks in the recent weeks have compared the governor's bid to a bid that cities put out when there's a stadium to be built. And oftentimes the cities, the economists show again and again, just don't benefit as much as we hope. It's great reason to be skeptical. We have to make sure, first and foremost, we are building an economy for the people who are here. And that means investing in our small businesses. When I'm governor, we will put our government on the side of our small businesses, making it easier for them to get lines of credit earlier, having the state back up our local banks, encourage them to use the latest technologies to do that. When the uprisings happened in West Baltimore, a neighborhood in Upton where my mom grew up, one thing we had no shortage of with small businesses, we had shortage credit. When you look at the bid for Amazon, it's imperative that that bid include real change to public transportation that allow people to get to their jobs. We've had 2 in northern Montgomery County, and that's where the bid is for. We've had 2 bus lines shut down. We need to make sure that that bid is actually going to fund what happens in the schools. You know, the expansion of the schools, that's needed. The concern is, if you give away so much of our tax dollars, we'll have a bunch of kids show up, needing more teachers, needing more resources, and no money to pay for it. And, thank you very much.
I'll remind you, I'm Jim Jim Shea, in case you've got there are a lot of us. Two aspects to this question. One is the financial incentives that are offered to these companies like Amazon. Every other specter of this spectrum of this world checks those things out first. We're not doing that as government. You have to analyze whether what you're giving away, financial benefits, is going to be exceeded by what you get from the deal. We don't do it ahead of time, and we don't do it afterwards, because our government's interested in the PR value of getting the company to come here. They come, they make this big deal, and we're left with the aftermath of whether it was good or bad. The politician takes the credit, walks away, and the rest of us have to pay for it. So if I'm governor, we'll look very, very carefully at that kind of arrangement. Secondly, this bid for Amazon headquarters is from Maryland, Montgomery County, DC, and Northern Virginia, all immediately adjacent to themselves, between themselves. If I were governor, I would lead a collaboration, joining forces with our adjacent jurisdictions and making a collective bid instead of splitting it three ways. We'd have a much better chance of getting it, and we would all benefit. Whether it's in Northern Virginia, DC, or Maryland, we could easily share the benefits. We're not getting that kind of leadership from our governor. He is not stepping forward. He is interested in the PR value of what's happening.
So Governor Hogan believes that giving $5 billion to the world's richest man is good economic development. Of course, what he's doing is mortgaging Maryland's future, so we can't pay for good schools and good transportation. And in fact, the lack of mass transit in the Baltimore region is why we lost Amazon for Baltimore City, and that's because Governor Hogan killed the Red Line. In Baltimore County, as opposed to writing blank checks as corporate welfare, we have focused on working with our existing large employers to understand what their workforce needs are, and then we train people to acquire those skills so that they graduate not just with a job in their hand, but a job in their hand. That's the way you grow the economy here in Maryland and help people. Thank you.
Anybody else like to respond? All right, let's have our next question then.
Hello, my name is Jessica Solomon. I'm a student here at Goucher, and my question is for Alec. And what steps can we take in order to ensure that Maryland's environment remains protected, even in the event of substantial reductions of federal funding?
So thank you for that question. I mean, look, our environment is under assault by the pterodactyl-like mentality that's being brought to environmental issues by Donald Trump's administration. I think that on environmental issues, it ought to be the case that when you drive under a sign that says "Welcome to Maryland," you're entering the resistance. And so part of what I think that means is that we need to fully fund the Office of the Attorney General to pursue legal action that contests every piece of crack-smoking, crazy anti-environmental policy that comes out of the Trump administration. That's thing one. Thing two we need to do is we need to take care of our own business here in Maryland. Sometimes we think we're a little bit more progressive than we are. And there are a lot of agricultural policies that we need to look at here in Maryland that we administer ourselves, particularly as it relates to the chicken farms on the Eastern Shore, and as it relates to some of how we deal with waste in the Chesapeake Bay. So we have to take care of what's going on in Washington by offering resistance, but we also, I think, we need to be equal to our rhetoric of environmental stewardship here in the state of Maryland and holding ourselves accountable to the highest standards. And I think that if you take the Hogan administration policies on environmental issues and flip them to the exact opposite, 180 degrees different, that's the right answer.
My husband runs the National Wildlife Federation. I feel like I would be sleeping on the couch if I didn't chime in here. I think there's 4 things we need to do. First and foremost, the fact that Governor Hogan sat silent for 7 months after Trump pulled us out of the Paris Treaty is a lack of leadership. So the first and foremost thing I would do is make sure that we sign up for the Climate Alliance, but that we also double down on RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiatives. Because we used to be a leader in that regional effort, now we have been leading from behind in the sense that we've been dragging our feet. And I want to make sure we change that. Second thing I want to make sure we do is we restore Chesapeake Bay funding, but also make sure that that funding goes to protecting the tributaries. Because it's basic common sense, right? We need to make sure that the Patapsco, the Potomac, the Nanticoke, the Choptank, all of those rivers that feed into the bay are also safe. Because one day I would love to see my daughters still be able to swim in the bay. Third, I want to make sure that we invest in the outdoor economy. Because here in Maryland, we have beautiful outdoor resources. But we're not investing in access to those resources, nor are we investing in marketing. So when people talk about going to vacation, they go to Dewey Beach or Rehoboth. They don't go to Assateague or Chincoteague or Ocean City. We should be the best place to vacation on the eastern seaboard. And then fourth, I want to invest in clean energy. Because right now, Maryland consumes more energy than it produces, which means that this is a win-win when it comes to the economy as well. We should be creating well-paying jobs here in state by investing in offshore wind and solar energy.
Thank you. We need to, in fact, to follow the lead of Goucher College. You have been leading the charge in environmental conservation and smart policy for the future. You've made that commitment to clean energy. You've made a commitment to recycling. You've made a commitment to bringing food in from locally grown sources. Goucher is leading the way. Maryland should be leading the way. To build a little bit about what Krish said, we have a renewable portfolio standard in our state. That's the percentage of electricity that we have from renewable sources. Governor Hogan vetoed a bill 2 years ago which would have brought us just up to 25%. It's one of the 275 bills he's either vetoed or chosen not to take a position on that have passed the General Assembly in just 3 years. We need to get that to 100% as quickly as possible. We have to move away from fossil fuels. Our lives depend upon it. Global warming and climate change are going to forever alter our existence, and they're going to forever alter the state of Maryland. We are at risk more so than most other states because of the amount of shoreline we have, low-lying areas. If we don't take action to change where our electricity is coming from, we are at risk. And it's smart economic development. The first fossil fuel lamps in North America turned on in Baltimore City almost 200 years exactly. It is time for us to lead the charge to the next phase in Maryland.
All right, next question.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Serbi. I go to Goucher College, and my question is for Rich. What is your plan to tackle the opioid epidemic, especially among young people in the state of Maryland?
Thank you, Serbi, for that question. The opioid epidemic is truly creating havoc throughout our communities. And while our governor has said he was the first in the country to declare a state of emergency last year, the only thing that has happened is the number of deaths, the number of overdoses, have only continued to increase. The governor of the state address talked about a $500 million investment in fighting the opioid epidemic, and at least half the chambers out there are going, what? Where is that $500 million coming from? That's just another example of the Hogan hype machine, just throwing out information. We need to make a sustained effort in the short term in actually helping people fight addiction. We need to invest money in beds, in treatment, to make sure people, when they are ready for treatment, they can get treatment. The problem with an addiction like heroin is it is so consuming that if you're not ready with treatment, when that person is at the door and you turn them away, the next time you see them, maybe hours later, dead on the street. We have to have the capacity for people to have treatment when they're ready. And that's going to take an investment of funds at the state level. We need the federal government to be a partner in that. but we also have to invest in the communities that are giving rise to the issues that are causing people to turn to addiction.
You know, when I used to teach at Goucher Junior High School, a parent comes up to me and says, Mr. Jaffe, I don't understand. My son Johnny is doing very well. His brother is not doing, what's the problem? I said to that parent, you know, it's very easy to be a producer. It's very difficult to be a parent. Money's not the answer to the drug problem. The answer, we need an education problem. And I have proposed what I call a tutor mentor program that could be implemented in any school, in any public school system, whereby a tutor mentor team will connect with a student and become the role models for that student from the time that student is connected until the student either graduates with a high school degree and a job or graduates with a college and degree and a job. That's what we need. We need going back to family, traditional values. We don't have it. That doesn't cost any money. It's called education.
All right, let's have the next question.
Hello, I'm Elise Rivera, and I'm addressing Kevin. In the face of growing tuition costs and rising student debt, what is your plan to ensure that higher education remains affordable for Maryland students?
You want to do it that way?
I think it's supposed to go to Jim. Do you need to hear the question again?
I think I've got it. It's about student debt load, which is enormous and debilitating. This is a huge problem, and it's causing ripple effects. A problem for you and all the people that we know. You come out of school with an enormous debt that you have to pay off. It prohibits you from buying a house, getting yourself established. It puts a financial burden over you that's terrible financially and awful psychologically. We need a sensible program to enable students to work off that kind of debt. Right now, I think we have a credit system mainly for teachers. We need to expand that to all forms of public service that would enable young people to get into a civic-minded position and contribute to the community, get engaged. So important to get engaged and to have that debt weaned off or postponed. Absolutely critical. It will help you, it will help the economy, but most of all, it will engage our young people in our world. We need you. We absolutely need you. We need new leaders. We need you to come forward. We need you to vote this time. Vote for any of us. Be sure you vote. And civic engagement, along with the erasure of your debt, would be a perfect way to get started on that. Thanks.
Early in the beginning of this campaign, I came out and I said I agree with Bernie Sanders that we should make our public universities, community colleges, tuition free again. They were before mass incarceration started. And a funny thing happened. Somebody else in the race jumped out there and said, well, it's irresponsible to say this. How are we going to pay for it? 2 weeks earlier, Governor Hogan had called for a return to the failed war on drugs. He'd said he wanted to bring back truth in sentencing. Outrageously expensive, totally ineffective, total silence. When it comes to educating our kids, they always ask the price. And when it comes to locking them up, they never ask the price. I asked the president of Penn State years ago what his greatest leadership challenge was. He said, oh, it's quite simple. Every year I go up to the state capitol to keep so much more money from going to the state pen, so just a little more will come to Penn State. When I'm governor, we will get our priorities right again. When my granddad went to the University of Maryland School of Law and the third class of black students admitted, it was $200. By 1970, that was the late 50s, it was $400. Today it's $31,000. If it had kept up with inflation, it would be $2,600. We get our priorities right, we get our policies right, and we end the student debt crisis, and we end mass incarceration. Thank you.
question.
Hello, my name is Wendy Paulos. I'm a student here at Goucher. I'm addressing Kevin. Considering the trial of members of Baltimore Police Department's gun task force, how would you seek to resolve the issue of police mistrust here in Maryland communities?
Well, you want me to take this for you again? It's up to you.
I actually was a prosecutor in Baltimore City when I first got out of law school, and we've had a long-standing problem with distrust between the police and the community we serve. And when I became Baltimore County executive in a different jurisdiction here, I wanted to make sure that we didn't have similar problems. So the first thing I did in a county where we are 35% non-white, I wanted to make sure that our police department reflected the quality of the diversity of the community that we serve. And our recruit classes for both police and fire have been 40% non-white male. In fact, our fire department has more female firefighters now than any other county our size in the country. But we also led the way for police-worn body cameras, and all 1,400 of Baltimore County's police officers wear them, because we wanted to ensure that we maintain that level of trust and have an element of transparency. And quite frankly, cameras improve the behavior of both the citizen and the police officer in every encounter. So it's important that we have trust within the community, and police are viewed as partners. Those are issues that I think the city has a long way going, but hopefully with all of this bad, some good will come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what we really need to solve this crime problem are politicians who will tell you the truth. They don't. The truth is that right now, by the way, every police officer who is a bad cop should be fired immediately. But the truth is, and the politicians won't tell you this, the Baltimore City Police Department is at least 1,000 officers short of where they need to be. That's why the crime problem is so bad right now. We don't have enough police officers, and the politicians won't tell you this. Jackie tells the truth, not some of the time, but all the time.
Might as well stay up there.
I'm going to offer an extension while the questions get done.
Hi, my name is Andrew Rowland. I'm a student at Goucher College. My question is, if the minimum wage bill passes through the state legislature, what will you do to ensure that Maryland promotes job growth and remains a business-friendly state?
It is a great question, because obviously the minimum wage, making sure that every person who's working a full-time job can actually support their family, is a basic value that I think all Marylanders share. But I think the sad reality is that even with a $15 minimum wage, people will have to work at least 2-3 jobs in order to support their family. And so for me, the question is, how do we not just mandate a baseline, but how do we actually grow our economy? In a state like Maryland, where Governor Hogan talks about us being open for business, the sad reality is that we are far from where we could be. Right now, our unemployment rate is between 18th and 25th. We have wages that fall behind our neighboring states. And I will tell you that time and time again, when I talk to folks in my county, Montgomery County, or anywhere else across the state, especially since I will note, I came out of the White House and I started a small business, just a small LLC. And I will tell you that, I went to Yale for college, I went to Oxford, and I went to Yale Law School. I don't think of myself as an idiot, but the entire process made me feel stupid. So much so that I said to my husband at one point, I said, I may just give up. And I want to make sure that as governor, we make creating jobs the easiest thing to do. And so what I want to do are a few things. First, I want to make sure that we're actually investing in infrastructure, because this is part of the problem. Growing our economy requires us to, for example, guarantee universal high-speed broadband. But I also want to make sure that we're investing in infrastructure in the sense of transport and human capital. But we also need to do more than that, because Maryland is a state that could actually have an innovation economy that competes with California or Massachusetts, and we're not third.
So this question hits close to home for me. I actually spent 6 years working for minimum wage. Growing up in coal country and having to going back for home during the summers, there were no jobs other than working for minimum wage. And so I know what it's like, to push a mop and it's lunchtime at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I know what it's like when you get your paycheck and you're like, there's actually something wrong with this. Anybody who tells you, I wrote a book about the industries of the future. I study labor economics. Anybody who tells you that raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour for business is bad is wrong. It's just greedy for business owners who right now, at a time where executive compensation is at an all-time high in America's history, and corporate profits are at an all-time high in America's history, the well-being of our laborers, our workers, we're going on 3 decades of stagnation. There's supposed to be balance between government, corporations, and citizens. These things are supposed to sort of exist in a social contract, where not one becomes too powerful, and where you sort of share the benefits between the different parts of our society. And things have gotten really out of whack recently, where corporate power, and we need to grow our businesses, but right now when you get billion-dollar enterprises, including billion-dollar enterprises here in Maryland, that won't pay minimum wage, that needs to be fixed.
Minimum wage must be passed, but we do need a business-friendly atmosphere. I've devoted my career to creating jobs. My firm created hundreds of jobs. I was chair of the empowerment zones in Baltimore City for the most stressed areas of West Baltimore and East Baltimore. We had capital programs for startups and helping small businesses. We had job training for people who wanted to get jobs and then get better jobs and higher wages. And that, by the way, is as important as the minimum wage, not just driving up the bottom wage, but also driving up the wages above them. You don't want to create compression. I was chair of the university system. We took the innovation that the research professors came up with and we turned them into startups. Over 300 startups were created while I was chair in that 4-year period. That created hundreds of jobs. So we need to help our own. We need to help with an infrastructure and education system. 10 years I served as chair of the Central Maryland Transportation Alliance to push mass transit. We have online a full plan for a statewide transportation system that will grow industry, move commerce, and get people to their jobs. Thanks.
The whole purpose of my campaign is to create a Maryland where we unleash opportunity more efficiently. Right now, small businesses across our state are being choked by rapidly rising healthcare costs, up double digits every year Hogan's been in office. I'm the only candidate who's put out a plan to make sure that everybody in Maryland has healthcare and we get those costs under control. You talk to the head of the Gallup Institution about why is it that American gross domestic product has been growing slower and slower every decade, the last 3 decades. Say quite simply, young people are starting fewer new businesses. Why? Because student debt is climbing. And so we're clear that we will make our colleges radically more affordable. Our state used to be number 3 in the country in health sciences. We're now in the bottom half of the top 10. We have to internalize that tech for good is good for Maryland. We are a state. We're solving cancer, solving our climate crisis, solving cybersecurity, our core industries. And our governor must invest in those. And in doing so, we have to understand that attracting tech companies here also means actually embracing the strength that is our diversity. We are one of the most inclusive tech economies in this country. And that's why I've begun to talk to tech leaders about opening expansion campuses here so they can get greater diversity, not just a better workforce.
All right, final question.
afternoon. My name is Emma Content. I'm from St. Mary's College of Maryland, and my question is for Ralph Gaffney. In the wake of the movements such as Me Too and Time's Up, how do you intend to ensure workspaces are safe for women and men who experience sexual assault?
You've asked me a very good question. Hope I can give you a good answer. You know what brings all this about? Power. Power corrupts. These politicians, they become so arrogant, they think they can get away with anything. Power corrupts. And what I'm suggesting to you today is this. Until we begin the process of getting rid of these career politicians, unfortunately, nothing's going to change. Power corrupts. If it's one thing I try to get across to you is power corrupts.
So one of the things that you see in industries dominated by men is greater sexual harassment, which isn't surprising. So part of my answer is maybe we should have more women in office. And the sad reality is that in Maryland today, in a state as progressive and cosmopolitan as Maryland, out of 14 federal and statewide offices, so 8 congressmen, 2 senators, the lieutenant to governor, governor, attorney general, and comptroller, all 14 positions are filled by men. So one of the policies that I rolled out was one to address sexual harassment and sexual violence. Part of it was creating the first of its kind Office of Sexual Harassment and Violence. Because what I want to make sure that we provide is an opportunity for when women step forward, for those incidents to not just be registered, but addressed. But also for those women, when they step forward, that their stories are not going to be discounted. That they appreciate that there are wraparound services, so when they're confused about this process, they know exactly where to go. The second thing I want to make sure is that all politicians, all individuals who are seeking public office, public positions, and also business with the government, make statements indicating that they have never engaged in sexual harassment or sexual violence, because that is the standard we need to set for politicians. And finally, we need to institute education, not just at the high school level, but at the middle school level. So people understand at an early age what is mutual consent. Because whether we see it on college campuses or in high schools or in businesses, this is the dynamic and we need to change it.
So the coming forward of so many women with the Me Too movement gives me great hope, but I'm also a little nervous about one thing. I remember when I worked on the Obama campaign and when Senator Obama became President Obama, I thought maybe we can now get our, America's oldest sin, our legacy of bigotry rooted in race behind us. And look what happened. There's now this backlash of white nationalism that sort of reasserted itself. What I really hope with the Me Too movement is that now that these women who have had the courage to step forward, what I hope is that this isn't one step forward, one step back. And I'm already hearing the chatter and reading the articles, people saying, hey, maybe we've gone too far. And I don't think we have. What I think we have to do is we have to seize on this moment to make sure that there is absolutely no tolerance for sexual harassment or sexual aggression in our workplaces, in our schools, and anywhere else. So what I really believe is that we need to learn the lessons about having made progress. We have to institutionalize it, we have to formalize it, and we cannot ease up on any of those who have to be punished for their transgressions.
All right, so now let's move on to the 1-minute closing statements, starting with Ben.
My family moved to Maryland in 1941. Granddad worked the B&O Railroad. Grandma went to work for Planned Parenthood. We moved into the McCullough Homes housing projects in West Baltimore. We raised my mom there and in the tenements not too far therefrom. A generation later, they were waving goodbye to me at Dulles Airport as I flew off to be a Rhodes Scholar in Oxford, England. My family's lived the American dream because we first invested in the Maryland dream. It's time for us to resurrect that dream. Time for you and the children that you will soon be raising if you're not already. We have an opportunity here to build a movement across this state of working, struggling, striving students, people, and families. That's what our campaign is doing, and I hope that you will join us. Thank you.
Talent is everywhere, opportunity is not. There's one thing I've learned in my 46 years of life, is that talent exists in every zip code in our country, but the opportunity doesn't. I know when I taught 6th grade at Booker T. Washington Middle School on Baltimore's west side, I saw a genius there. I saw absolute genius there that was equal to that which I saw sitting across the table from me in the White House Situation Room. Talent is everywhere, opportunity is not. Today's generation of politicians have not done enough to close the gap between talent and opportunity. That's why I hope all of you will commit yourselves to supporting new faces with new ideas so that we can really shake up the political establishment and drive the kind of change that we all want to need. Thank you.
Thank you, Goucher. Thank you, all of you, for attending this, and thank you all for your questions and for your moderation. Believe it or not, the governor of Maryland is the most powerful governor in the country. Our state constitution reserves more powers for our governor than any other state constitution. It matters who the governor of Maryland is. The governor has to set the budget. The governor has to appoint everyone, judges, cabinet officials, every statewide official except for the attorney general and the comptroller. It matters who we have as governor. At this dark moment in our country's history, it matters that we have the opportunity to have a progressive state like Maryland, with a Democratic governor and a Democratic legislature leading the way for our country about what good progressive policies we can show. We can have the best public schools. We can have the best universities. We can have universal health care. But you need a leader who's going to push to get it done and someone who knows how to get it done with the relationships to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for having us. The Democratic Party is a great party. You see 6 great examples of great people behind me running for governor. But we lost the election in 2014 when Governor Hogan was elected. And we lost in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected. And I don't think it's just because we had flawed candidates or improper campaign strategy. I think our message has been tired. My message is this: we need explosive, inclusive growth. We need opportunity for everyone. We need to focus on people, not policies. We need to dare Maryland to be great. And the route to that is in education. Please read my plan, 21 pages online, on how we can improve our educational system and how we can pay for it. Let me finish not by asking you to vote for me. I hope you will. Please vote. Thanks.
So there once was an election. There were difficult times and voters were looking for a change, and they were attracted to this charismatic, bold outsider who promised to shake things up. He said things that so-called politicians never said. Yes, Donald Trump was elected president. And as we've seen in Washington, president and governor are not entry-level positions. It requires experience and skill sets in order to lead. And we need a governor who's going to fight for the future we deserve. A future where Maryland leads in renewable energy and we can combat climate change. A future where everyone has a shot at success and no one should have to work full-time and still live in poverty. A future where our leaders stand up for our values and protect all of us. To do that, we need to beat Larry Hogan. And I am the candidate who can best do that in November. Look me up, kevinformaryland.com. Thank you.
your hands. And so I want to just conclude by talking about how we win. Because the reality is in 2014, we had nearly 300,000 Democrats not show up. And they were majority women, minorities, immigrants, and younger voters 18 to 29. And so we need to have a candidate who can actually get those folks to turn out. And I believe I have a unique advantage as a woman. I believe that speaking to things like the Me Too experience is relatable. As an immigrant, I've already spoken about the fact that that is my life story. As a minority, going from Woodlawn to the White House, people mostly know Woodlawn because they know the serial podcast about a murder. Minorities need opportunities. And as a younger voter, many of you probably think that I was a student. But this is where, whether we turn out or not, is going to make the difference of whether we have a governor in Maryland who is a leader or not. And so I hope you will join me, KrishForMaryland.com.
I want to leave you with the following thoughts. We have to have politicians that we can trust. The movement I started in 2002 has continued now. This will be my 6th campaign. I've kept my word. When you judge a candidate not how much money they raise, but their character and their ideas. That's what we need. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a round of applause for all of our candidates. Thank you so much to all of you for coming. We're so glad that you were able to come today and tell the young voters of Maryland what your positions are and how you're going to take this great state in the future. I'd also like to thank our moderators for volunteering to help us run this event. Candidates, we'd love if you could stick around after this event closes to talk with some of the voters in person. And once more, on behalf of the Sarah T. Hughes Center and Goucher College, thank you for attending.
Not great. Hey, how are you?